But you've extrapolated this even further than just athletic abilities, haven't you?
I have, because I've discovered that, you know, I've discovered in the conversation that you tend to approach people who stink at free throws with the idea of, how can you possibly stink when I can show you in a very short period of time how to shoot 70 or 80%? Why can you stink? How can you get $5 million a year for playing basketball and end up shooting 17% for the year? That's a new world's record. How does that happen? I submit that I do know how it happens. It happens because the brain of the human being is not setting goals and doing what's necessary. Because if they did, 6 weeks from now, they'd be shooting 70% free throws. My humble opinion.
So you can extrapolate shooting free throws to almost anything.
Yes, that's correct. Any skill and any goal can be achieved by human beings. That's what motivational teachers always tell us. We can do anything we want. All we got to do is want to and follow some very simple rules. Now, some things are more difficult than shooting free throws. In fact, I think everything is more difficult than shooting free throws. Everything is more difficult than A to B, but it still can be achieved if we set the goal. Doesn't matter whether we believe it or not when we start, we just head in that direction, and certain magical things end up happening to make it possible for us to achieve those goals. But you know what happens if you don't set the goal? Almost nothing.
So it's just taking the concept of doing one thing and making it work for other things.
Exactly, exactly. And it becomes just one more example of how things work.
So where have you taken this concept?
Well, one of the things I was going to say is, interestingly enough, in terms of motivation, it ends up to be a very important concept because it's a way of demonstrating to human beings you can learn how to do just about anything that you want to, and you can even find this thing that nobody wants to, and easily learn how to do it successfully. And that's probably true of a lot of other things. So I have a tendency to apply it to a lot of other things. Anything we want to achieve individually can best be achieved by setting a positive goal and then letting that process take place. I'm also a person that likes group behavior, so group behavior would work the same way. Interestingly enough, I did recently set a goal about 90 days ago. I wanted to help the world achieve world peace. Jim Corbett, you may know him, Mr. Music. He's got that goal. He really believes in that doggone thing. And I thought to myself, wait a minute, as I analyzed that, that seems to be impossible. That's what I thought about 90 days ago. I don't think so anymore because I've thought through the process and I understand why I think it's impossible. How are you going to get the Al-Qaeda to agree with the United States government? The only way you can do it is to ask them what their goals are and to ask them enough questions to discover that they have similar goals. At that point, they could begin to agree. Without that, they won't agree. And by the way, if they don't want to agree, they won't agree either.
What do you do, Bob, to promote this? Obviously, by using YouTube, by using the internet?
Well, here's an interesting fact that you might enjoy, Curtis.
What's that?
My website, SoCooL.com, and I now call it my primary website because I have a lot of them, gets more traffic on the internet than KSRO does. Now, you got a few more employees than I have. You spend a little more money than I do. You give away things. You do wonderful things all day long. And yet, strangely enough, SoCooL.com gets more internet traffic locally and around the world than KSRO does. Because I've been publishing since 1995. Since what I published in the beginning was about human motivation, all those things that cause us to behave. So I've got a page on everything human. And now I communicate better than I used to because what's on my pages that I change now is television. Curtis, somehow magically over time, my mind became that of an international television executive. And the world changed so that it didn't cost $10,000 a show. It costs nothing. You see that I can produce television, and I'm a real advocate of the idea, but it would cost a lot more money for me to produce anything than it is for me to just download something from YouTube. And YouTube gets about, I don't know what it is now, 5 million pieces a day. And the progress of human beings includes groups that we might care about, like the NBA, they got their own channel. The Golden State Warriors, they got their own channel. KPIX, their own channel. Everybody's got their own channel, and they broadcast their television, and they say, if you want to put it on your web page, go ahead. So if you go to SoCooL.com, what you will see, and it may help for me to describe it, there are 3 television shows on that page that are each about 4 hours long, and they change constantly, and I don't have to change the web page, I just change the content. As a result, people are interested in coming to the web page and interested in what I have to say, because my stuff I describe as primarily positive, which is a little bit unique compared to a lot of media. Like the news, for example. Huh, Curtis? Would you like to hear my description of the news?
Yeah, please.
Well, see, you can extrapolate human behavior by watching what people do and then analyzing it and describing it. The way you do the news, I think, if you're a professional, is you take the worst thing that happened all day long, that's the first story. Then you take the second thing that happened, worst thing that happened all day long, that's the second story. Then, of course, obviously, you take the third worst thing. Or, if something happened to a blonde female or she messed up, that should be the third story. And then you go on to the next one. And I've seen so many examples of it that there's 35 negative stories and 1 positive story. The problem with that for me, Curtis, is my understanding of human behavior is the way we achieve things is find somebody who knows how to do something correctly and copy them. Well, what does that mean if we're all watching the news, watching people do things wrong all day long, and the most famous thing that happens all day long is whoever did the worst things? How does that work? I would submit it doesn't work as well as it could. However, I've also discovered, as you may have as a media person, that if you do all positive things, you don't get a big audience. Isn't that strange? The reason why we do those negative things, I do them too, is because you get an audience. You want to know my most famous video that I've done in all these years?
Yeah.
It's the world's ugliest dog contest from Petaluma.
Oh, you did?
Now, I did 20 television shows on the Sonoma Marine Fair website. There's the cow channel, the pig channel, the swine channel, the headliners, all the great music that they have. There's the rides, there's everything you can think of at the fair. And one of the things at the fair is the world's ugliest dog contest. In terms of traffic, that contest gets 10 times more visitors than the entire website combined. And 2 years ago, remember when Michael Jackson died? On that day, the Associated Press, who publishes the 3 top stories every day, the #1 story of that day was Michael Jackson died. The #2 story was Mr. Ahmadinejad was mad at Mr. Obama. I think they're famous people. The 3rd best story on that day was Paps wins the world's ugliest dog. When I put that video up on the air, it gets 350 to 450 visitors an hour. Immediately. Because the system of communicating is already set up. Somebody puts it up on France. They put their page up. It becomes the #3 story in travel in France for about 3 days. Why does that happen? I always say, I just report the news. I don't make the news. But I will tell you that that's the way human behavior seems to currently work. If it's negative, we can get a lot of attention. So I do occasionally do a little negative on my website as well. But I generate traffic with Facebook and Twitter and things like that. I communicate as much as I can. And I use principles like this. One of the reasons I'm excited today, Curtis, is because you are a communicator. One of the neat things about being a communicator is you learn if you communicate to a communicator, you can multiply your communications immensely. Because they communicate to others, and others communicate to others. And all of a sudden, what they call a virus or whatever nowadays is an incredible audience. So the opportunity to communicate to a communicator means a lot to me, especially if one person in the audience gets the idea that, wait a minute, we can have world peace. We really could. That would be a lot more important, frankly, than the free
I get it. Let's take a short break here.
Yes, sir.